The next question is, I really kind of want your opinion on, or your professional opinion on, what do you think is like the most important thing when talking to science deniers? I love to do this. I like to go in and kind of break up their echo chambers and things like that. Talk about it on my show, make sure people know that my space is a accepting and welcoming space that promotes education. And education is really important to me, so no one turns out like I did. I would rather there be no more young Earth creationists in America, right? Ever. And if I can, and it's sad, I have seen in the last 2 years, 3 homeschool kids who are specifically homeschooled because the parents want them creationists. Just super sad, and I try to put information out as much as I can. What do you think is most important, most helpful when talking to a science denier? Do you have any tips for dealing with science deniers? What do you think? Go
Yeah, that is not an easy question.
ahead.
Um, and I'm honestly like I'm really impressed at your enthusiasm and your ability to talk to science deniers. I know for myself, on my site, I often joke that my audience is the normals. So like at a bell curve, right? People over here don't need me. Um,
People over
People
here
over
don't want you.
Yeah, I'm not going to reach out. So I'm talking to the middle of the bell curve who are swayable. And the idea would be to sway enough so that, maybe even people move. Um, so science denial is often not about facts. So it's not about facts most of the time at all. Most science denial is motivated by two things. One of them is what's called solution aversion. So it is, I don't like the solutions that we would need to accept if this belief is true. So, for example, we've been talking about evolution denial. Some people might think that if I accept evolution, that means that I don't believe in God. It means that, or even that God isn't real.
Right.
It would mean that
I'm not
solution.
special. I'm not specially created. I'm not intelligently designed. I'm a product of random chaos.
No better than an animal.
Yeah.
How are we to teach kids to be moral if we're telling them they're no better than chimpanzees?
Right, if they're
Right.
apes. You're just an ape. Yeah, that was one of Ken Hoven's favorite ones. You expect kids to behave in a classroom when you're telling them that they're monkeys? No, Kent, that's not what we're saying. That straw man could have been cast as the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz, okay?
Yeah, and strawmanning scientific arguments is one of the best ways to win a science argument, right? Um, Climate change denial. So Naomi Oreskes and Eric Conway in their Merchants of Doubt book did such a. Have you read that?
I've not, but I will recommend.
Oh my God, it's amazing. And Naomi Oreskes is I'm totally fangirling just even at the thought of Melanie Trecek-King. She is a force. Her new book is on. So she had this book called Merchants of Doubt, which I'll come back to in a second. Next was Why Trust Science, and it was basically like what science is and why we should trust it, and it's flippin' amazing. And then her new book is about how how American businesses, how industry convinced us to trust industry more than science, more than government, I should say. Which like the Reagan, I'm from the government and I'm here to help, or the most dangerous words, right? So how did that happen? Anyway, so back to her Merchants of Doubt. She's a science historian. In Merchants of Doubt, she traced the history of science denial, in particular in tobacco industry. So the tobacco executives knew quite well that their products were addictive and were harmful to human health. And yet they convinced the American public to not have the government regulate them, not by convincing them that tobacco wasn't addictive or that tobacco wasn't harmful, but that there was doubt. We didn't know enough, right? And there's this tobacco industry executive memo that said, doubt is our product. Doubt is our product, right? We're not trying to convince you of something else. We're just trying to confuse you to the point where regulation is not something we want to do. If we move forward in time, those same think tanks, the same money, the same scientists, even in some cases, were behind the climate change denial. Because if you accept the reality of human caused climate change, then government regulation has to be a solution, which means I don't like that solution. I need to deny the problem. Right. So solution aversion is one of the biggest motivators for science denial. The other one is tribalism. And
Yeah.
like we believe what our tribe believes. So at this point, one of the biggest demographic factors that we can use to predict whether someone doesn't believe in climate change is they vote Republican.
Yep.
Or to predict whether they think climate change is a hoax, right? They vote Republican.
Yep. Every time.
Now, liberals are prone to science denial in a different kind of way. Historically, it's been different things, but today it's more like GMO denial, in some cases, nuclear energy denial. So there's other forms. So it's not inherent to conservatism. But the point is, like, tribalism and the consequences of solutions are reasons that we might want to avoid science denial, which is to say, this is a long-winded way of saying, when we talk about science denial, it is not about science. It's not about the facts. It's about some underlying motivation. So if I bring something else into this, there is a scientist, his name is Jonathan Haidt. He's famous for writing like The Coddling of the American Mind, but he wrote this, are you familiar with Daniel Kahneman's System 1, System 2 theory?
Go ahead. What is that? I'm very excited.
Yeah, so Kahneman and Tversky won a Nobel Prize for their work in economics and on human biases. But Kahneman proposed what he called System 1 and System 2 in the brain. And Jonathan Haidt has a similar theory, but he's calling it the elephant in the writer. And I use it only because it's much easier for people to understand. So here's what I want to back up.
Okay.
Imagine in your brain,
Okay.
you have an elephant.
I'm an elephant. I have an elephant.
On top of the elephant.
I'm on top of the elephant.
So in your brain, there's an elephant and a rider that sits on top of it.
Okay.
That's what I have in my brain. That's what you have in your brain. Okay. Now the elephant is strong, right? It's powerful. It is always on. It doesn't take any effort to move the elephant. The elephant is motivated by emotions. It's motivated by tribalism. It's motivated by its own biases. Like the heuristics it takes when I'm trying to decide how likely something is, well, I can think of this easy answer. Boom, there, I believe that. It is the unconscious part of the brain that is always on, that doesn't really require much effort. Now, the rider sits on top of the elephant. The rider is capable of logical reasoning. It is capable of higher order thought. But in order to correct the elephant, it takes a lot of work, right? The elephant is much stronger than the rider. So most of the time, okay, probably too much information about me, but I have an absolute weakness for frosting.
Okay.
Like, I freaking love frosting. Buttercream frosting, right? Now,
whipped icing
is the vehicle for frosting, right? So, like, if I get a cake with like just a ton of buttercream ice cream of frosting on there, man, I am just there. Now, the writer goes, that is not good for you. A lot of calories. You really shouldn't be doing this. And the elephant goes, but it tastes really
good. But it's so good. Yeah, come on.
And also, you were really good today. Like, you already went to the gym and you're not going to eat anything else, right? Like, tomorrow you can be really good. The elephant is just justifying, the writer is justifying what the elephant wants to do, which is to eat the cake with that frickin' frosting. Okay, so here's the thing. My elephant in general comes to conclusions that are emotional, that are biased, that are tribal. But the writer, instead of critically thinking through the problem, right, instead of actually weighing evidence and coming to a logical conclusion, which is what it thinks it does, instead is just accepting what the elephant says and providing justifications for it. All right. So now, if I want to deny climate change, I know what my elephant wants to do. My elephant sides with certain people. My emotions are guided towards certain things. I don't like the consequences of accepting that particular conclusion. So my elephant is like, this is just what you need to accept. And the writer goes, here are all the reasons why I'm right. Now, if we get a group of people together, all of us have elephants and writers. So when I'm talking to you, I think my writer is talking to your writer. We think we're having a logical conversation, when in reality, my elephant is telling my writer what to say, and your writer is interpreting everything I'm saying in terms of the elephant. Think of the writer like the lawyer for the elephant.
Okay. Yeah. Providing all the reasoning necessary so that the elephant will walk the way that you want it to walk, right?
Yes. So if we've now got a tribe of people, right? So these are people who have a similar identity around this shared belief. We all have elephants in the writers. Those of us who have the writer that is best able to make an argument that seems like the best winning argument, right? The best lawyer for what our elephants want to believe. Mm-hmm. And our lawyer can best defeat the writers, right? On the other team's beliefs. We elevate them, right? So when we're talking about people in a group, we can see it now with like the anti-vaccine, anti-mRNA vaccines. There's certain people that are sort of elevated to the top of, here are the people that can best provide the arguments for why the COVID vaccines are bad. They don't have the expertise to do it. They're not making good arguments. Nevertheless, they make the most logical arguments for the people on that tribe.
Mm-hmm. I could point that out for flat earth communities too. There are certain people, flat earth creators, that are held up as like the poster children for flat earth, almost as your Dubays, your Mark Sargent. Witsit Gets It is a really big one recently. He gets tons of flack. Everything is wrong, but he gets tons of like clout for coming in and doing these debates and sounding really intellectual when he does them.
So backing up, then, on the surface, it seems like a factual argument, right? If we're doing Ken Ham versus Bill Nye, or if we're doing Mark Sargent versus like Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? From the outside, what it looks like is an argument over facts. And to most people, that's what they want it to be.
Oh, it's not, right?
What they want, what they think is, my brain, right, my writer has come to the most logical conclusion based on available evidence, when in fact there are other factors at play.
Yeah.
So it's not actually about facts at all. When we're talking to science deniers, it's not about facts. It's about what the elephant is suggesting to the writer, and the facts are these surface. I'm assuming you've seen Behind the Curve.
Yeah.
Okay, so that, I thought it was brilliant.
You're going to trigger a lot of flat earthers right now because they hate that movie. Oh my God, they hate it. Oh, they hate it so much. Thanks, Jared. Why? Oh man. So, Jaredism and Bob Nodell both are on that movie. Both are memes now. So Bob Nodell is the guy that buys the laser optic gyroscope. Rest in peace, Bob. Sadly passed away. Okay, so like, all respect to him and his family and love. Please don't at me, okay? Nobody deserves hate for the things they believe, okay? Ever, ever, ever. So Bob Nodell is a meme. We say thanks, Bob, because in that movie, Bob Nodell buys a laser optic gyroscope and he turns it on and he picks up the 15 degree per hour rotation of the Earth. As predicted, he says, if the Earth is rotating, we'll see a 15 degree per hour drift. And when I turned on that laser gyroscope, we saw a 15 degree per hour drift. And I have seen two rationalizations of this. You have debaters like Witsit who say, well, there's an ether swirling around us, and that's what that laser optic gyroscope was. The ether is real. Must be real. Because that explains that phenomenon, except it's not. And then at one point I saw a debater, I want to say his name was Nathan, but he was in a debate, and he said, It might have been a different one, though. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. There was another debater who was on, they were doing a duo debate, and he said that mechanical gyros don't pick up the 15-degree power drift. That's how you know it's just the laser gyro that does. That took me 2 seconds to go to Google and find out that he's wrong. In fact, there was a YouTube video of a young man who has a giant mechanical airplane gyro in his basement that he spins, and it picks up the 15-degree power drift of the Earth. So Thanks Bob is a meme, right? When because he showed it. Everybody hates that movie because they present it as though Bob proved that the Earth was round, which he did. And they have to come up now with new ad hoc justifications for why it happened. The other one is Jeranism. Jeranism hates that movie. Jeranism is the guy who had the lights. He holds the light up. Okay, he's like, Enrique, hold the light up. And he says, if the Earth is flat and I hold the light here, I should see it. And if the Earth is round and I hold the light up here, I should see it, right? So when they hold the light where it's supposed to be, to shine straight across, he doesn't see it. Of course he doesn't. The Earth isn't flat. And when he holds the camera up, they pick up the light. Now, Jeranism ends that experiment with the word interesting. The reason that he does that is because Jeranism had predicted that he would see the light at like 23 feet up when they saw it at 19 and not at 17, which is where he wanted to have seen it. And everyone brings that up to him. He has a live call-in show. You go find his show. Call it, talk to him about it. And everyone brings that up to him on his show, and he hates that because he says they're misrepresenting me, right? What they did is they brought me out there to record, to ask me to do an experiment, and then we did it, and it didn't provide the result that proves the Earth is flat. There's a confounding variable. I said interesting, and they presented it as the Earth is round. They misrepresented me. In fact, on MC Toon's channel, MC Toon did the math, the correct math, and found that it is in fact exactly what the globe would have predicted for that distance. He did the math over on his channel. So it does affirm that the Earth is round. But they don't like that movie because they think it's like paid opposition or whatever. Because it puts them in a really bad light.
Okay, but so I need to ask you something then. What do you think is motivating flat Earth belief? In that, like we've talked about solution aversion or tribal identity or whatever it is, in that it's not about facts. So when I present this, I call it like a fact shield. And we can see in experiments, if you present people with facts that would disprove an underlying core belief, what they do is they find ways to make excuses, right? They make ad hoc excuses, right? It's wrong because of this, it's wrong because of this, blah, blah, blah. And then ultimately, they'll keep moving that goalpost until they get to well, it's just my opinion, or I'm entitled to my belief, or whatever that is. But the point is, there's something under it that all of the facts, those are just a shield, right? Those are cherry picked. They're chosen to maintain something that is motivated underneath of it. So in flat Earth, what is the motivation?
It is, if I had to boil it down to a sentence, it's the need to feel special in one of two ways. For religious flat earthers, it is the need for it depends. Now, this depends on your flavor of religious flat earther. For many flat earthers, it is a very literal interpretation of the Old Testament. The Old Testament describes the earth as being flat with a dome overhead, with wind.
Right? If I remember, doesn't the Old Testament describe Earth like a tent with like a flat with four? You are testing my Sunday school lessons. I don't think I paid.
I can show you a picture. We can pull up a picture. I'll show you.
What is Sheol?
Sheol is the underworld. So this is one of the ones that the flat earthers really like, or it's similar to it. But the ancient idea of the universe is that the Earth is flat, and it may or may not have four corners, which is interesting because flat earthers don't believe it's square; they believe it's round, so it can't have four corners. So it already can't be literally true. Like, you're wrong right there. The four corners of the Earth is very much a metaphorical. It's just like all the other descriptions of the Earth. You either take them as literal. I love your cat. You either take them as literal and you're wrong, or you take them as figurative and you come out on top. It's up to you. But the Earth is flat, with the sea held in by the giant wall of ice that is Antarctica. Antarctica is a giant wall of ice that encircles the Earth. and it holds the oceans in like a plate with water in it, or like a giant basin. The earth stands on pillars that are the foundation of the earth, but the pillars hang on nothing, because the Bible says both of those things, that it has foundation, but that the foundation of the earth hang on nothing, and that there is probably some foundation of the heavens for a firmament that is above us, that flat earthers don't know what it's made of, but that the sun, moon, and the stars are within that firmament somewhere, or possibly the stars are on the outside, depends on the flat earther you ask, and that there are waters above that firmament with little windows, you can see them over here, that let the water in so it can rain, even though we know rain comes from the clouds, so that's ridiculous. And so if you look at a standard flat earth cosmological model, you're gonna very much see something that looks like this, and they're gonna say that I'm straw manning them, because of course they do. Some flat earthers will just say we don't have a model. They'll just refuse to accept any model of the flat earth and claim that the earth can't be explored or measured. That all the governments of the world keep you from doing that. But in general, Antarctica is a giant wall of ice that surrounds the Earth, and Polaris is here at the north. And all the stars and the moon and the sun rotate, and the sun and the moon. Oh, this is black. I gotta change the color. The sun and the moon rotate around the Earth like this, opposite each other. So if the sun is over here, then the moon is over here, and that's why you have day and night.
I guess the need to feel special.
Yes.
But
so if you're a religious flat earther, you believe in a very literal interpretation of the Bible, that it describes the earth that way, and that's the model that they will resort to. That's the model that they'll use. If you are not a religious flat earther, not a super religious flat earther, you might believe that the heliocentric model, where we go around the sun, is worship of the sun god, and you don't want to believe in a false religion. Most or all flat earthers believe in some sort of new world order that's out to get them, an ambiguous they that is trying to control everyone, which is necessary for their belief, because every major nation in the world teaches that the earth is round in all of their education curriculum. So all nations of the world must be working together at this. Some flat earthers will say that the devil uses the earth being flat to hide God, that having the earth being round is an atheistic belief like evolution, and that they want to hide God. It's exactly the same. It's so interesting, and I want to do a video on this one day. Parallels between creation arguments and flat earthers, because creationists hate flat earthers. I'm sure you understand. You would remember, right? Unless they are both. But creationists that... Huh?
Are most flat earthers creationists?
Yes, but not all creationists are flat earthers, and creationists that are not hate flat earthers. Hate them, hate them, hate them. The only people that Kent Hovind ever punches down to are flat earthers, and he does it all the time.
But okay, so are all flat earthers creationists? Or are the vast majority?
The vast majority probably are. I would assume so, yes. From the debates and things that I've seen, the ones that come out.
To them, are they interpreting what they see as the literal word of God?
Mm-hmm. Yes, the Bible said the earth looks like this, and that's what it has to be. Just like how when creationists read the 7-day creation of the world, it must be exactly that. Genesis must be literally true. It can't be allegory. It can't be metaphorical. And if that's true, then God is real, and there's a creator, and he has a plan for you, and you feel special. See how it comes? It all comes back to that.
Conversely, if earth is not flat, God is not real.
Because the Bible is wrong.
And God. Okay, so actually it's the underlying motivation is more than just feeling special. It is upholding what they view as the literal word of God. And being wrong means that the Bible is wrong.
It's wrong. And their whole world comes crumbling down.
Oh, that's interesting.
Now, not all flat earthers are religious that way. There are some flat earthers that just see worship of the globe, or see the globe earth as worship of the sun god. They think it's some false religion. There are some who just believe in the conspiracy, the shadowy, globalist organization that wants to control you, and being a flat earther means that they're privy to special knowledge. They know something the rest of you don't know. They're not a sheep. For a lot of flat earthers, the need to feel special reflects in them. When we talk about that knowing things other people don't know, they'll say, I don't just blindly trust science. And that's something I want to get to, right? They'll say, I don't blindly trust science. You just believed everything you read in school? Don't you know that textbooks lie? Don't you know that teachers lie? Don't you know the government controls what you learn? things like that. That's, for them, that's part of the motivation of feeling special. I'm not a sheep. I'm not a sheeple. I don't just believe everything I'm told. I have this unique belief that is not the consensus belief. And they get to hold themselves up on a pedestal for that. Makes them feel special.
Smart. This is Dimitri.
Shostakovich.
Because my husband's a conductor.
What a sweetie.
I guess what I'm wondering is, because if we're talking about science denial, then the video that I saw of you was really interesting because you were talking to a flat earther.
Moon landing, the friend of a moon landing denier. Ath was not a denier, but his friend was, and Ath was trying to ask me, how do I rebut? I don't know how to rebut this. His arguments make a lot of sense to me, and I don't know how to refute. But his buddy on Discord that I kept referencing the arguments for, that guy was a moon landing denier, who may or may not also have been a flat earther. He did also deny gravity, but I didn't push the issue to ask, and I don't want to put that on him if he's not.
I mean, did you say he denied gravity? What does that mean?
So flat earthers have to expressly deny that gravity exists in its entirety. Gravity's not real. It's never been tested. It's never been measured. It's never been observed. The gravitation.
I don't understand why the two have to correlate.
Why? So there is a video that Vsauce did about this. Actually, that's really cool. Vsauce. Yeah, he's awesome. He did a video on flat Earth, and he describes that if gravity is real and the Earth is flat, assuming the Earth is dense enough to maintain its shape, and it wouldn't be, and that's why flat earthers have to deny gravity. But assuming the Earth was dense enough to maintain its shape, as gravity pulled toward the center, you would have to build everything at an angle, walking to the side of the Earth, so that it felt like you were facing down, because gravity would pull you progressively further and further to the center. Now, the reason that gravity doesn't work is because gravity is inherently attractive force, and it attracts everything into spherical shape. So we know this is true. Planets are all round, stars are round, asteroids are roughly round. And the larger they get, the more round objects become. So for the Earth to be flat, gravity can't be real because gravity would collapse the Earth in on itself until it became round. It would collapse the edges down. So they must deny gravity in its entirety. And the replacements for it are very weak, depending on which sect of flat earthers you ask. But they have to replace it with a downward force of some kind. So they must. If you're curious, I can tell you.
Yes, please do.
So the first one is from the Flat Earth Society, and every flat earther who watches this is going to say, "You're strawmanning me. We don't believe in the Flat Earth Society. They're paid propaganda. They're paid government opposition." Okay, so the flat earthers from the Flat Earth Society, which may or may not be paid government opposition, I don't know. They posit that the Earth is flat and accelerates upward at 9.8 meters per second squared. Now, that can't work because eventually you would reach light speed and then everything would disintegrate. So that can't happen, but that's what they posit. Many flat earthers don't do that. They cite density and buoyancy as the reason why things fall down. See, helium balloons are less dense than the air around them, and that's why they rise. But the problem is that doesn't make them rise up. It just makes them move away from the molecules around them. You have to have a force pulling the molecules down so the denser molecules push the lighter molecules up in the air to cause the balloon to rise. That doesn't work. And the density formula includes gravity in it. It's in the equation. It's in the calculation. They're just wrong. Witsit, who provides the one that most flat earthers like the best, posits that there is that everything in the universe is inherently electrostatic, which is not necessarily wrong. Everything does have some electrostatic charge to some degree. We know that atoms do attract. There are nuclear forces that attract atoms and electrical charges that attract atoms. That's true. But that there is an electrical charge that sets a downward bias that causes things to move down because of the magnetic field of the Earth, because it is a giant spinning toroid around the Earth. Which I am not like an expert in that field, but I have seen debaters refute this argument. Like, you can just watch Fight the Flat Earth. He was an engineer for the Royal Navy. He knows how all of that works. He has refuted this argument a million times. MC Toon has too. All of people who debate Witsit, they refuted this. But it doesn't matter, because even if Witsit is correct, you could grant that his premise is true, and it doesn't help him. If everything is inherently electrostatic, then all atoms attract all other atoms at a constant rate, which would function exactly like gravity and collapse everything into a sphere. So it doesn't matter. He's still wrong, which is hilarious.
Okay, this is fascinating because what I'm getting from this is you do take a completely different approach to talking with science deniers than I would take. Um, are you familiar with Michael Shermer?
No, tell me about him, though.
Michael Shermer, so he's old school skeptic. He quotes something like, he says something to the effect of, the question is, why do smart people believe stupid things? And he would say, smart people believe stupid things because they're skilled at defending the reasons that they arrived at for non-smart reasons.
Yes.
So here's the problem. We equate levels of science denial, like especially sophisticated levels of science denial, with intelligence, and that's not true at all. So smart people arrive at conclusions for the same reasons the rest of us arrive at, right? It's biases, it's emotions, it's tribalism, it's whatever it is. But the smarter you are, the better your writer is at being a lawyer, right? So if you're really smart or if you're really educated, you're able to come up with what seems like really sophisticated arguments for something that's not true.
Yes.
And so when I hear you talk about these kinds of things, I mean, these are really sophisticated arguments. And so you're trying to converse with science deniers who I think probably have relatively sophisticated arguments for flat Earth. And some at which, I mean, it's been a long time since I've had a physics class. And so if I was talking to some of them, like, I really wouldn't be able to address some of their arguments regarding physics. That's not, for me, that's not the point. Right. For me, what I would want to do is drill down to why is it you believe this?
Yeah.
Like, what are the consequences for this? This is where like the street epistemology people are excellent.
So good. So good. For the audience, go watch Street Epistemology. Oh my God, go to their website, Google them, look them up, watch all the channels that do that. All the channels that do that. They have a playlist on YouTube. Holy, it's so good.
No, it's so good. And actually, Street Epistemology International now I think has a handbook for how to have these conversations. So it's like they're a nonprofit now, and Anthony Magnabosco is the head of this organization, and the idea is what he does with these conversations is okay. It's something, first of all, that I've tried to emulate in my own way with, I have an epistemology exercise on my website. And it's like the 6 questions to ask yourself of why you think something is true. But the whole idea behind it is to drill down to the reasoning. And if you're having a conversation with someone else, it's let's explore together why you think this. It's not adversarial. I'm not trying to attack you on this belief. I'm not trying to even convince you why you're wrong. What I'm trying to do is try to explore your reasoning with you. Right? We're collaborators here in this process. And in doing so, one of the key traits I think it's important with critical thinking in general is to separate your identity from your belief. Right? So when I teach critical thinking, I actually start with witch trials. So my day one lecture, actually, to be fair, my first day, I fool them, and I can talk to you about that if you're interested in.
So cool.
But the first lecture that I do is about witch trials, and I literally start with, okay, I'm going to tell you a story, and I don't want you to take notes. The purpose here isn't to take notes. What I want you to do is think about why I'm telling you this story. What is relevant to this class here. And I talked to them about the witch trials in Europe, about the Pope and the hammer of witches, and the idea that basically everything that was going wrong was the result of a witch. How do you find a witch? Well, someone accuses a witch, but the best evidence was if a witch confessed. Well, how do you get a witch to confess? You torture them.
Torture them.
I show them torture. Like here's the wheel of compassion, where they would roast somebody over coals, or here's the Spanish boots, where they would take these metal, like they would fit around a calf, and they would have like these big spikes, and they would just like bang on the outside until all the bones broke.
Quick aside. I don't want to
Yep.
interrupt you too much because I don't want you to lose your thought. Quick aside for the audience. If you want a really, really good series on exactly the kinds of horrific, awful medieval torture, Dan Carlin's Hardcore History did an episode called Painfotainment, where he details not only a bunch of what Melanie is talking about here, but also how it was a public spectacle of an event. This is not always a private thing that happened. Burning a witch at the stake was something that the entire village gathered around to do, and they would sing hymns because they believed that the fire purified her soul as she died screaming, tied to a pole that was burning her to death. So, like, this is not just a subtle thing. It's we're going to torture you till you confess, and then when you do, we're going to burn you to death publicly in the town square while we all sing praises to God because he's going to purify you and send you to heaven. And you can get all that from Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. Please go watch that episode. I'm so sorry, Melanie. Back to you.
Okay. One, I'm going to need you to send me that,
Will do.
because I have not seen it. Two, notice it was almost always a she.
Yes. Very rarely do you get a warlock.
Yes. There were some interesting werewolf trials that sort of coincided at the same time, and were rooted in the same, but the witch trials were much more prevalent and were much more female dominated. Okay, how do you know for sure if it was a witch? Well, if you threw her in water and she was bound up, right, and she sank to the ground, she was not a witch. Right? She was dead, but she wasn't a witch. In the idea that if she had accepted the Lord, she had been baptized, but in this case, the water accepted her, so she was accepted by the Lord. But again, she was dead, right?
Yep.
If she floated, she was a witch. So you killed her then afterwards.
Right. So she's going to die either way.
She was going to die either way. But all of this was in service of proving to them that it was a witch. So and interesting, I'm outside of Salem, right? So this is something that is locally very relevant.
I've been there during Halloween and seen like the costume parades and then like the preachers that like.
Is that not the funnest thing?
It is the most fun thing ever. Oh my God, it was the best.
Yes. There's a ball that they have every year here that you have to get like win a lottery ticket to actually get enter. But then like during the pandemic, they didn't have. Oh, look, my whole point is I really want to attend this and I haven't been able to because it's so flippin' fun. But if I go back to my students here, so the idea. So I start with witches. Look, I have a lot of immigrant students, and some of them do believe in witchcraft, but the vast majority of them don't. And that's the point. What I want to do is I want to start with something that I know they don't believe in, but that you can look back in time and go, they really believe this. Why did they believe this? What was their evidence for this? They were confident they were right. Should they have been confident? What might have proved them wrong? And then ultimately, what I want to get them to do is think about, what do I believe? Right? What is my evidence for it? I may be really confident about something, but not have good evidence for it. Right? Now, it may not have the same level of gravitas that like a witch would have in the 17th or 18th century, but like, how would you know if you're wrong? You're wrong about something, but what is it, right? We don't know that, right? But so I start with this idea of getting my students to think about why they might be wrong. Now, the street epistemology people are doing this in conversation with others, which I totally I respect the hell out of, because it's really hard to have these conversations with other people. Because what you're trying to do is, if in somebody that you disagree with vehemently about something that's really important to you, the whole point isn't for me to tell them why they're wrong, but to legit be curious about what it is that you believe and to try and explore it. And the only way that happens is that if we detach our identity from our belief. Because if I think that being wrong means that I'm wrong and that I'm a bad person and that everything that I stand for is wrong, then I don't want to change my mind. Right. So modeling this, so I have to reference my t-shirt here because the whole point here is, right, what is it that you believe and why? Be curious, be skeptical. Like, could I be wrong? And the humble, like, what would that look like if I was wrong? Um, Doing that internally is what I'm getting my students to go after. In conversations with others, which is what you do, and I have mad respect for because that's
Thank you.
ridiculous hard to do. You're what you're trying to do is not just model it in yourself, but try and help someone else explore that same process.
I think you talked about separating beliefs from identity, and when I said I'm kind of a unique case in that I can go into a debate like Nye versus Ham and come out caring more about facts than beliefs, that's probably very much why, right? Because my beliefs don't define me. I am me, and then I believe things that are true, and that's more important to me. One of my favorites is my partner says to me all the time, "Why do you have to be right about everything, Lucas?" And I say, "Well, because I'm a know-it-all." And I say, "Well, because as soon as I'm wrong, I change my mind so I can be right again." Like, why not do that? Why wouldn't everybody just want to be correct all the time? Because I value being correct. That's when I talk about personal value. The reason I don't need a pseudoscience or conspiracy to feel special is I already am special by virtue of my own efforts. Right? For me, it is and this is a subjective thing. We talk about values. Value is subjective, right? There are a lot of groups of people try to put value on people. Citation: all of Andrew Tate's little sycophant people that put value on women is ridiculous. That whole group of like red pillar men is disgusting to me. But whatever. Debate me, bro. Come on, Sneeko. Let's do it. So, okay, I'll take you on. You're wrong. Let's go. Anyway. So, now a bunch of Sneeko's followers are going to report my channel. I know it. Well, bitch. So, anyway. So, like, all of that is super disgusting. Value is a subjective thing. But if I had to pick a metric, if I had to pick one, if you held me down, you said, "Lucas, how do you know? You said I don't need a conspiracy to be valuable. I'm already special. How do you know that?" If I had to pick a metric, I would say, how many people in your life love you? How many people show up at your funeral? Right? How many people are going to remember you when you're gone? Did you put something out into the world that other people care about? Well, I have a family who loves me. And that's how I know I'm valuable. I don't need a conspiracy. I don't need a pseudoscience. And that's part of the reason that Game with Everyone was so important to me. Because for people that a lot of times, and I don't have a lot of hard evidence, very much my belief is that a lot of the reason that these people seek this special feeling, the underlying cause, is because they're alone and isolated for whatever reason, or they have such a hard time dealing with their own emotions or their own actions that they don't. I'm gonna out my dad here. Dad, I love you. Sorry. So my dad is very spiritual, and his like favorite book of all time for a long time was A Course in Miracles. Have you ever read that? Course in Miracles is like the Bible for New Agers, basically. They would disagree because they don't have like one specific book, but it basically is. Almost every New Age movement person I've ever seen believes in it, and my dad used to take me to a New Age church in Colorado. It's really cool. I learned a lot of culture there. It was awesome. I had a summer camp, learned all about Native American and African tribalism culture. It was really cool. I don't believe in it. I don't believe a word of what I was taught there anymore. But like, it was really nice to learn the culture, the religious things. But they were very like he very much subscribes to this spiritualism because he hates Christianity, but he still believes in spiritualism, this kind of pantheistic spiritualism, and this idea that in the Course of Miracles, you choose your life before you're born. Or there's a philosophy in the New Age movement that you choose your life before you're born. You when you are among the stars and you're going to be born, you decide with your higher powers or whatever what your life is going to be. I disagree with this view. Because no one is going to choose to be a Holocaust victim. I don't understand that. So it doesn't make sense to me. But that you choose these things, and you choose them.
Every person alive has chosen the life that they have chosen.
Yeah. And what this does, or did for him, he doesn't do this as much anymore, but what this did for him, very much the same reason that I loved redemption in Christianity, is it absolves him of his responsibility, right? Because he chose these things to learn lessons, or to teach lessons to others, right? And so kind of the bulletproof response is, well, those victims of those tragedies, someone who's a victim of a tragedy, let that be the case for them. gave themselves so that they could teach a lesson to others about how to be good to one another and what it's like. Which is not necessarily exactly. This is just my experience with it. Not all New Agers believe it, because New Age is a very nebulous spiritualism. It doesn't have a hard doctrine. So, but very much in my dad's case, he used this to absolve himself of a lot of his responsibility. Well, I just needed to learn a lesson from those mistakes I made. And for me, Christianity did that too. I felt very isolated, alone, and unable to reconcile my own faults. And so I said, well, everyone's a fallen sinner. I don't have to feel that bad about it. Everyone's fallen, right? We're all sinners. We all deserve the fire, and God doesn't send anyone there, at least in my belief. Right? God loves us all, and he saves us all by grace, so it's fine. No matter what I do, I'm still loved, even if it's just God. It would be okay. And then coming out of that was essential in me recognizing my faults and beginning a process of healing with people around me. But for a lot of people, I think they subscribe to these because they're looking for, like, when I talk about Andrew Tate's sycophants, right? The people who watch those guys, Sneeko and them, they're feeling alone because they just want a partner who loves them. I don't do any of that red pillar stuff. A partner who loves me, so get wrecked, okay? You. I really hate that. Can you tell? And they just want someone who loves them and cares about them. People who want to feel special for things like Flat Earth, I feel like they just want a community that they feel cares about them. And you can see the toxicity of this. If there's a YouTuber, his name is Seek Truth, Speak Truth. You probably don't know who he is. Yeah, so Seek Truth, Speak Truth, it was an avid Flat Earther. Posted huge long videos on his channel, well edited, all that stuff. Came out against Flat Earth, and he posted a video that said the Earth isn't flat, you've been lied to. And he does it over time. He goes from avid Flat Earther to questioning to the Earth is round. And you can watch it happen in real time on his channel. He left all the videos up. It's fascinating. And the entire community turned on him like piranhas. And he's paid opposition. He's a shill. No true Scotsman fallacy to him. He was never really a flat earther. He just got in with us to try and, expose us and take us away. Oh, it was awful, right? So it's like, I want to make sure that people know they have a community here where they're loved no matter what, and that they can do better, as opposed to a community like that, which will turn on them and devour them if they look away from it, which holds people in those communities, right? If you know what the bite model is.
Yeah.
Those communities, like Jehovah's Witnesses, will use ostracization, the removal of your community from your life, to hold you in place sometimes. And that is a little bit hyperbolic, but it is dangerous.